Okay.
to come in, but it's fine.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the Danvers Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm going to take this off while I talk. Thank you. As I said, there's an agenda for tonight's meeting outside if anyone would like to follow along. We have one withdrawn case tonight, and we'll do that first. And then we'll go to the top of the agenda and go through the agenda. We received minutes from our last meeting. I'm just going to go over some general information first. We received minutes from our last meeting. We had a few corrections from the board members, and we're waiting for an update, so we're not going to accept the minutes from the 8/16 meeting tonight. We'll do it at the next meeting. I also want to say that we have, for the next 3 meetings, our meeting dates are 9/27, 10/4, and 10/18. We don't have any applications for the October 4th meeting, so we are going to cancel that meeting. So I know some of you come to every meeting, so I just want to give you that information. Do we need a motion to do that, David? To cancel a meeting?
No, it's not been scheduled.
It's
so
just go off the schedule.
Correct.
Okay, all right. And I'm going to ask everyone to silence their cell phones so we're not interrupted by phones ringing. And I'm going to introduce the members of the board. All the way down to my right, John Bonner, Jeff Sauer. To my right, Ken Scholes, who's the clerk tonight. I'm Becky Kilborn, I'm the chair tonight. To my left, Ken Javinian, and all the way at the end, Corrine Doherty, who is our alternate tonight. And from the planning department, we have Georgia Pendergast, who's our secretary clerk and takes care of us very well, and David Fields, the planning director. So the procedure for tonight's meeting is the clerk will read the notice of the hearing, and then I'll ask the applicant to go to the microphone and present their information. If you've submitted slides to Georgia, she'll help with projecting those up on the screen. I ask you to use the microphone. If you're comfortable taking your mask off while you speak, it helps us to be able to hear you. After the applicant presents their information, we'll go to the board, and each board member will ask questions of the applicant. Then we will go to the audience for any comments or questions from anyone who's here in the audience. And if we have anybody who's called in, but I don't think we do tonight. Georgia, did we have anybody called in tonight?
We have abutters, but no.
Some abutters? Okay.
Some abutters.
All right. So we'll do those people also. And then we'll go back to the board for deliberations. We ask that we not be interrupted during that time, and we'll talk about your case, and at the end of the discussion from the board members, I'll give you your options for the hearing and moving forward. Is there anything else that I'm missing, board members?
I think you got it.
All right, okay, so we'll ask for the first case.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Our first case is 161 Elliott Street, zoned R2. Request for a finding in accordance with section 3.10.2B of the Danvers Zoning Bylaw to allow an extension of the non-conforming boat storage use. Request made by Brian Atherton, docket 21-4950. Madam Chair, we're in receipt of an email. We would like to withdraw our application for a finding to allow the boat storage at 161 Elliott Street, docket number 21-4950, signed Joe DiLorenzo.
Can I have a motion to accept?
Madam Chair, I move to accept the withdrawal.
A second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So anyone who's here for the yacht club, Danvers Port Yacht Club hearing, they've withdrawn their application. All right, thank you.
And our first continued case is a long one here, so bear with me. 137911 Hobart Street, 114-128 Maple Street, 5361 North Putnam Street, 26 Putnam Court. This is the, I forget what we call this.
Hot what?
Zoning.
Oh, the zoning.
Yeah,
Maple Street.
Maple
Maple
Street.
Street. Go
zone.
ahead, David.
It's the industrial one or Maple Street Traditional Neighborhood Overlay District.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Request for a use variance to allow a drive-through facility in accordance with Table 18-8, Section 22.5, Point G, and Section 18.7, Point C of the Danvers Zoning Bylaw made by LRC LLC, J. Lee and W. Lee trustees, R. Bouchard, M. DeLomba, docket 21-4948.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Nancy McCann. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Georgetown Capital Management, LLC. With me tonight is Nick Fay, Megan Thayer, and Anthony LeBreau from Georgetown Capital, and also with me tonight is Scott Cameron, the project engineer. And we are seeking a variance to allow a pickup window for pharmacy only, subordinate to and accessory to the permitted pharmacy that's proposed for this site. We did make a full presentation to the board at the August 16th meeting, and at the conclusion of that meeting, we continued in order to provide to the board the minutes of the planning board meeting. That was an informal meeting that occurred in July. We had two informal meetings over the general development of Maple Square, which is what this project is called, as well as a site view with the planning board. And the planning board members expressed no concern with regard to the pickup window and were generally favorable with regard to the project as a concept understanding. We certainly have to go through the whole permitting process. And at the end of our meeting with this board on August 16th, we continued so that we could provide you with the minutes of the meeting so that you would have the information with regard to the planning board's thoughts on specifically on the pickup window. At the conclusion, I did speak with Director Fields, and the minutes are not available for the meeting. However, I did submit to you in my letter of August 18th, I submitted to you the link to the video of the planning board meeting, which perhaps is better than minutes anyway. You had the opportunity to review that, hopefully, and I indicated where in the video you could find the general discussion by the planning board, which might be informative, as well as specifically where the planning board was polled with regard to their position on the pickup window. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to review that video if you chose to do that. So that hopefully will provide the information that was requested at the end of the August Board of Appeals meeting. So again, we're seeking a variance that will allow a pickup window associated with the permitted pharmacy use in order to allow customers the opportunity, if they are ill or they've got sick kids or whatever, to be able to pick up pharmacy items only at the pickup window. We certainly feel that this is in keeping with the intent of the bylaw and provides a public health service to customers and allows for this development. I won't represent, unless you'd like me to, the details of the full presentation that we gave. It was also outlined in detail in the application, and I'm happy to go through any of that. So that's where we left off. That's the additional information that we submitted, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'm going to, before we go to the board, tell you that we're in receipt of two letters. One is from, I think you're copied on this, Mark Goldstein, Beverage and Diamond. It's an extensive letter referencing many legal cases. He represents, it's an attorney. Just the first paragraph I'll say, I write on behalf of concerned property owners to oppose the above referenced use variance application for a drive-through at a proposed pharmacy, which is part of a mixed-use project that is the subject of the future application tonight, and this is for the future application to the planning board. He represents 1 Maple Street Associates, which is the Danvers Square block with Santander Bank down to CVS. You've seen this, I assume.
I did receive a copy of this today, as the
It's
board
about
did.
20 pages long,
It
so.
came in today, which was certainly
Yeah, they've
at the last
included
minute, but
an
I
additional,
have.
I know, it's a lot to go through. And
But I have gone through it,
have
and I
it,
would
okay.
be, like the opportunity to
Okay,
give
and
my
I'll
responses.
just say they've included another traffic study, and reference the traffic information that you had submitted. In addition, we have a letter from Thomas Aylesworth, I guess that's how you say it, from Marcus, Erico, Emmer, and Brooks, another attorney representing Salvo's Panini Pizza. Also strongly urging the board to deny the application. I don't want to read all of this, it's extensive, so,
Attorney Goldstein.
Okay.
You might want to hear from him first
Thank you.
before.
okay, thank you.
I have not received the second letter
Okay,
that you mentioned.
we can give you a copy of that.
I did receive the first letter that you mentioned, and I would like an opportunity, and I can be happy to go first.
Okay.
If you wish.
So probably with reference, David, do you want to do Attorney Goldstein when we go to comments? Probably that's the best.
Sure, we could do that as we normally would.
Okay.
I did want to point out to the board, we received another letter that, in opposition from an April Anderson. I tried to forward it to the board. It came in,
Late, yeah.
yeah, about 5:20. For some reason, it didn't go through to you, and we didn't have a chance to print it out, but we
Okay.
can get that to you
Okay.
if you'd
Do you
like.
want to just reference?
It was, once again, quite lengthy. I'm not familiar with Mrs. Anderson. She works for GovBiz Strategies. She's an economic development consultant and was opposed to the granting of a variance for a drive-through. Is the
And
last line.
does she indicate who she represents?
She does not,
Okay,
as far as I can tell.
And
all right.
and the property that she owns?
I don't believe there is one in this letter. I didn't get a chance to go through the whole thing. As I said, it came in
Okay.
Okay, so we
shortly
don't.
before the meeting.
We
We're
don't
not
have
certain
that.
who that is, and I
All
believe the
information came
second
in
letter
very late.
the second letter that you received today regarding Panini Pizza is located in the property that's owned by
Yes,
One Maple Square.
Yes,
So they
that's
are
correct.
tenants.
they're tenants of the first.
Yeah.
I mean, we can go ahead with Mr. Goldstein, Attorney Goldstein.
Okay,
All
sure.
right, why don't we do that?
Mr. Goldstein, if you can hear us, I think you have the floor.
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay, Mr. Fields?
You're a little quiet.
All right. Is this any better? Or I'll switch headphones.
That is better.
Okay. You just let me know if it becomes a problem. Oh, and now I can see myself on the screen. Thank you. Not sure that that's what I was hoping for. Members of the board. Well, actually, is it possible to pan the camera so I can see the board rather than see myself?
No, so the way it's set up, the viewers at home, I guess would you rather viewers at home see board or him?
I think the viewers at home ought to be able to see me directly through the Teams view, shouldn't they?
I think,
They can see you at home, yes. I don't believe you'll be able to see the board from your screen.
Okay. Because you're going to keep the camera there. Okay, that's fine. Thank you, members of the board, and appreciate the time this evening. With me tonight is Kathleen O'Donnell. My name is Mark Goldstein from Beverage and Diamond. I do represent One Maple Street Associates LP, which is the owner of the Danvers Square block from Santander to CVS. We're here to talk about 3 issues. The first is the propriety of having a drive-through in a 40R smart growth district designed to encourage pedestrians in a walkable downtown. As I said, attorney Kathleen O'Donnell is here and she'll speak to that issue. The second is to highlight some of the traffic issues associated with the drive-through at this site. We attached a 2-page letter from Kenneth Cram at Bayside Engineering to our letter as a summary of the concerns that he has about the current state of the design. Third issue is the inability of this project to meet the 3 necessary prongs of the variance analysis, which is the very narrow question that's actually before this board tonight. So first, I'd like to turn it over to Kathleen, who's going to talk about the 40R implications, and then I'll pick up when she's done.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you to the board. I hope I can be heard at this point.
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Kathleen O'Donnell. I'm an attorney. I have served on the zoning board of my town, and I'm also serving currently on the planning board of my town. But in my prior life, I was municipal council and worked with many cities and towns on the development of 40R districts. In fact, I helped write the legislation that created 40R, and I worked on the regulations that created 40R. And I'm concerned about the fact that this proposal for a request for a variance is essentially an end run around an incredibly complex process that creates these districts. As you know, of course, this goes through all sorts of iterations before the planning board, before the Department of Housing and Community Development for approval, with provisions as to what the design guidelines are, what the zoning guidelines are, and it goes then to town meeting for a vote. And so the town meeting has approved the bylaw in its current form, prohibiting drive-ins, drive-throughs of any sort, not just restaurants or pharmacies, but any drive-through. And that's really carrying forward the town's vision for this kind of development of smart growth, as Attorney Goldstein mentioned, pedestrian friendly, encouraging streetscapes, encouraging, as I said, pedestrian traffic throughout the district. And as I said, this is a process, a pretty lengthy process that the town went through to create this district. And it is just disconcerting to see an attempt without really any sort of justification for a request to a different board for a variance from the quite detailed proposition that created the 40R district to start with. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathleen. So picking up, there are 3 threshold issues I'd like to raise. First is, as we stated in our memo, we don't believe a use variance is available here. The applicant must choose which zoning scheme they're utilizing. Having chosen the 40R smart growth bylaw, they're not permitted to use the provisions of the rest of the zoning bylaw. Smart growth under this bylaw does not provide for use variances, and so the provision of use variances in other parts of the zoning bylaw are not available to this project. Second, want to express some concerns about the procedural posture of where we are tonight. As I understand it, having reviewed the video, the prior hearing was closed, deliberations occurred, a vote was taken that was negative on the requested variance, and a continuance was then granted to effectively try again. That's dubious at best. It's legally infirm at worst.
Let me just interrupt you that we did not vote. We only commented, and based on the comments, the applicant decided to continue. But we did not take a formal vote. Just for clarification.
I appreciate the clarification. But whether there were comments or there were a vote is a question that can be resolved if it needs to be resolved on an appeal. But I understand the board's position. The third threshold issue is one with respect to the setting of precedent on this project, and this use variance application defines how this new bylaw will be implemented in the future. Will it be in compliance with the provisions as written and as approved by town meeting and state entities, as Attorney O'Donnell has talked about, or will it be subject to change project by project? So I'm going to turn to the variance and the standards set out in Chapter 40A, Section 10, with a reminder that this 3-part test, an applicant needs to satisfy all 3 parts of it. The first is effectively whether or not the soil conditions of the land or the structures are somehow unique to that parcel and different than the conditions in the rest of the zoning district. Here, as I understand it, the applicant has contended that Contamination is the soil condition that makes this unique and is driving and satisfies this prong of the analysis. As far as I have reviewed both the materials submitted to the board and materials available at DEP, there's no evidence of contamination at the site. So there's no evidence there's no evidence before the board to satisfy this condition, even if soil conditions, environmental conditions at the site were to satisfy it. Second, even if there were such evidence in the record, environmental contamination does not qualify as such a soil condition. There's no nexus between the alleged contamination and the use variance that's being sought here. The environmental contamination isn't preventing the use of the property for various permitted uses. Instead, what we've been told is that the tenant requires the drive-through as part of its contractual relationship. It's not related to the soil contamination. It doesn't satisfy this prong. Second prong is that the literal enforcement of the bylaw would involve substantial hardship. This only exists where it is not economically feasible to develop any use permitted by the zoning bylaw, not the particular single desired use by the developer. And while the developer has clearly invested a lot of time, energy, and money in designing this project, there's no evidence that any number of other uses couldn't be developed economically here. Offices, athletic and physical training facilities, restaurants, all of which are available without a use variance. Also, we have provided in our memorandum ample evidence that a pharmacy can and is often built without a drive-through, particularly in urban settings. We provided 2 such examples in our memorandum. Moreover, neither unfavorable deal terms nor lesser profits are sufficient to justify a hardship. Just because you can't make it work economically with your chosen use doesn't make it a hardship. It makes it a personal problem. The third and last prong is the substantial detriment to the public good. And we've cited a host of reasons in our memo, and I'm not going to go through all of them. I will highlight the traffic issues that Ken Cram summarized in his 2-page memorandum attached to our letter. And in short, he's concerned about the internal circulation on the site caused by the substantial traffic on Hobart Street that will create backups onto the site in the same location where the drive-through will then merge back into the travel lane on the site, and at also the same location where existing traffic will be exiting and entering the parking garage. He has expressed concerns about this layout and the insufficient study and counts to demonstrate that this is not a detriment to the public good. In sum, ultimately, this is a narrow question for the board. One, is a use variance available for the project in an MSTND? And second, if it is, does the request meet the high bar that's set by the 3 prongs of the statute? A drive-through is not compatible with this 40-yard development, as Mr. O'Donnell has said, and a use variance isn't available for this project. Even if it were, the project can't meet the necessary requirements. Thank you for your time. We appreciate your consideration. We know that we have given you a lot to consider and read, and we look forward to having a discussion with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. McCann, would you like to comment?
Yes, thank you very much.
You can take a minute.
Yes, thank you. I did review the memo that was provided today, and I think what this really boils down to is a concern about business competition and not a real concern about the zoning bylaw. We have a situation where One Maple Street LLC is located some 3 blocks away, and throughout the letter, it is riddled with fears of competition and fears of business loss, and business competition and concerns about business competition has no place in or relevance to a zoning discussion. Patel versus the City Council of Peabody makes it very clear that injury to business competition is not a part of the purpose of the zoning law. And so I do question standing and ability to claim concern about the bylaw. I think that is that's clear throughout this this memo that we received today, that there really are truly underlying factors and not a real concern about whether there's a pickup window for a permitted pharmacy use. Secondly, we have provided in the application very ample evidence of the environmental concerns with regard to this site. There are soil conditions related to this site, and there are also conditions related to the existing blighted and derelict buildings that are on the property that this board is all very well aware of. And the existing buildings on the site have to be dealt with, the soil conditions have to be dealt with, and those are conditions that are unique to this parcel and do not affect generally lots within the zoning district, and affect the ability to develop this property. And those are hardship conditions that affect the site, and they result in premium costs of construction. And the courts have looked at that. Wolfman versus the Board of Appeals of Brookline looked at whether premium costs of construction can support, due to soil conditions, can support the issuance of a variance, and in fact they can, because the premium costs of construction have to be made up somewhere, and in this case, as we've outlined in detail in the application, we have to have a tenant for the site that is going to support the ability to finance this project. And it's a permitted use. The pharmacy use is a permitted use here. We are simply adding a component of a pickup window that will allow public health considerations to be recognized and dealt with, and the convenience to the public. So there is support here. There are unique conditions here that support the issuance of the variance. In that case that I referenced, the variance was granted. It was a height variance. One could say, well, just build a shorter building. But that doesn't make a financially viable project in that case, and the court recognized that and found that premium costs of constructions resulting from soil conditions that made it more expensive to build on this lot, and it was unique in that situation, is very similar to the situation that we have here. The third item is the statements, allegations in this memo about unsafe conditions for pedestrians and vehicles. There is simply no evidence of that. This is a well-designed plan. We have worked with planning staff. We have had 2 TRC meetings. We have met with various department heads, and the fact is that's a site plan issue, and that will be reviewed in detail by the planning board, as it always is when this board grants zoning relief first, and then we go to site plan review or plan approval. That will be reviewed in detail. We did, however, provide you with a traffic report that that states the findings, that there is sufficient queue here and there is sufficient circulation for the traffic that will use the site, both for the residential uses, the pharmacy use, as well as the pickup window. And we've also stated that the pickup window actually assists with parking considerations, because you can have a pickup window, doesn't require the parking of a vehicle and taking up parking spaces. But that all is site associated site plan review issues that is typical for the planning board to undertake, and the planning board certainly will undertake that review. There was a statement that the use variance that we're requesting of the pharmacy pickup window somehow contradicts the purpose of the 40R zoning districts. I certainly think that that's very far from the truth. This is going to allow an appropriate redevelopment of a blighted site. And there's nothing about this site right now that's helpful for the downtown, that benefits the downtown, that benefits any of the businesses in the downtown. This is a blighted site. It is vacant for most of it, and there is certainly a great deal of interest and desire, which gave rise to the 40R bylaw that overlays, remember, an Industrial 1 district, to bring 120 new residents here, bring vibrancy and shoppers, and promote business, and that's all part of the intent of the bylaw. I believe, as I stated at the last meeting and as stated in the application, we have certainly met all of the requirements for the variance. And to the extent that there was concern about the proponents of the 40R itself, you have information now in the form of their informational meeting, their informal meeting of the planning board that gave you good insight into their review of the site. We had a site view, and their feelings, being the proponents of the 40R development, that this entire project is certainly in keeping with the intent, with the purpose of 40R, which is redevelopment of this area to bring residential, to bring commercial, to bring mixed use. And we're requesting a variance to allow a pickup window, which we have seen now for the last 18 months. If we didn't know it before, we certainly know it now, that a pickup window for a pharmacy use, which is a permitted use here, is customary, it's accessory, and it is certainly in the best interest of public health.
I'd like to go to the board for questions, if that would be okay with you.
Absolutely, I've
All
done it.
right.
Thank you.
Start with John. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Attorney McCann, you had mentioned pharmacy items at this drive-through window. It was my impression that this would be pickup for prescription drugs only. Is that?
That's correct.
Can you clarify on that?
That's correct. Prescription.
So it's not, somebody's not driving up and doing an online order of several items outside of drugs?
No, this is prescription pickup only.
Okay. And I know it's in your package, but I just want to recap. Besides the pharmacy, how many other commercial tenants are there, not including the 120 apartments or restaurants or those types of things at this project, at this site?
There is the restaurant use, which we've indicated. There may be another restaurant use, which we discussed at the last meeting, which is a relocation of the existing Betty Ann's restaurant use, and then two to three other commercial spaces will be available.
But that also includes this area across the street, correct? This old,
The Freight House?
the freight house.
Yes, that would include the Freight House.
So there's 4 or 5 other tenants besides the pharmacy,
Yes,
potentially.
yes.
Very good. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
I have no questions, Madam Chair, thank you.
Okay. Ken?
I just have one question. If we grant this variance and this whole project doesn't come to fruition, what happens with that variance? Stays with that area, right?
As a limited pharmacy prescription pickup only window.
But the variance will still be there.
Yes.
No further questions. Thank you.
Ken?
I have no questions. Thanks.
Corinne?
I have a few questions. Has there been an environmental study done on the land yet?
There has been, yes.
Have you presented that to either the planning board? I didn't see it in our package.
I did not provide it in your package, no.
And do you know what the cost of the cleanup is yet?
Of?
It's gonna be 7 figures. We don't know
So,
Madam Chair, no one at home
Well,
can hear him.
I can,
If you would go to the microphone, please. Thank you. Identify yourself. Thank you.
Sure. Nick Fay, Georgetown Capital Management. Actually, Jeremy Lee is here as well.
Okay.
They've done studies on the property as well. There's phase 1, some limited phase 2, and then we're also anticipating a lot of structural fill, or excuse me, non-structural fill that'll have to be taken out, but we don't know the full extent of the contamination. But
so when does the final study, when do you have the study completed in order to be able to even put a total price tag on it?
It's a good question. I would say we have a sense of it now, right? We've built out our budget for it, but in terms of a final number, the reports will only give us an approximation. You don't know until you're actually remediating the soil, right? And where that soil actually needs to go. So we're anticipating that a good deal of this soil is going to need to be transported and incinerated. And that is extremely expensive, of course, because it'll be too volatile to be put back in the earth. So that is what we're anticipating, but it's really a moving target, and you have to, our experience is such that we've remediated a number of very contaminated sites. We just did a site with 5 cases on it, and now it's to the top drinking water standard. That's in Rentham, Massachusetts. The hotel company did one. The Residence Inn in Manchester, New Hampshire, extremely challenging. It was over $1 million. $1.6 million environmental claim. So we have experience with this, and we have a really high standard. I mean, we know this is going to be a really critical extension to the downtown, but we've cleaned up on aquifer districts. So we have a pretty good handle on it. In terms of the level of reports, we're at a phase 2 now. We'll probably do it over again and again, and then we'll have phase 3, phase 4. There's going to be multiple phases, multiple samples. We're going to have designated piles as we go, right? So each pile has to be handled differently. There'll be tarping, right, to prevent it from spreading in a rainstorm, things like this. So, and we'll have a full-time LSP on site managing the soils.
And what governmental agencies will be involved with permitting for this removal? So will you have to pull a permit, for example, with the EPA?
That is a great question for our environmental consultant, but we will be filing reports all throughout. When you do a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 report, you file it in the government EPA database.
And based on your past experience with these types of cleanup, what are we looking at as far as time frame to complete this? From the completion of the test to removing all of the contamination?
So it will be part of our site work package. So it will be slower, right? Because you have to sort the piles. You can't just reallocate it willy-nilly. So the site work duration of time, ideally we would start earlier in the season, because getting the site work in, and then of course we're doing a parking garage. So I think there's going to be a good deal of site work that needs to be done. But you know, you're talking about, I mean, up to 6 months easily. And so it's and just to speak on something that Nancy said, the actual structures, before we remove the structures, we've received a bid for $350,000 just to remove the asbestos. So before we even remove a single brick, a single piece of clapboard, we have to remediate that asbestos. And as you know, this project's developed, you know, it'll be invisible to the public, but that's it's a material cost.
And I assume that you have a contingent P&S with the primary landowner, and then the same with all of the homeowners that will abut this property?
Contingent on
On the-
approvals?
Yeah, and on everything going through.
Yes, one of them, actually 2 of them are here tonight.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, no further questions, I just have some comments, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I just, go ahead.
Could I go back to one thing? I just wanted to respond again to Mr. Scholl's comment about the variance will be there. Typically, this board puts conditions on the grant of a variance based on the plans that were submitted. And that's something I would assume you would do here. So the plans that were submitted shows the entire project. So it would be a variance that would run with the land, but with the project as shown on the plans, because you would incorporate those plans into your decision, as you typically do.
Because the variance runs with the site and stays with the site, yeah.
Right. So
Okay.
you typically refer to the plans that are submitted,
Yes.
and if those plans
But
change,
it's still there.
then we have
It's
to
still
come
there.
back.
It's still
no
there,
matter what.
yeah.
Madam Chair, I just don't want, I
I
would,
don't even know who's talking.
Mark Goldstein
Oh,
on the,
I'm sorry.
on the
Oh, go
screen.
ahead.
When is an appropriate time? I'd like to respond to just a couple of issues, but I'll wait my turn.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of questions and a couple of comments. One, I think the board ought to ask the applicant what reports have been done, environmental reports have been done, whether they've been filed with DEP, whether they are pursuant to the MCP, and who's responsible for paying for the contamination cleanup costs versus the asbestos cleanup costs.
Okay, I'm just going to
Is that what-
interrupt you because that's not really part of this application. This application really only deals with the drive-through. And
understand.
that would really be
And the
more
right, and the reason that
appropriate
it's
for the
relevant, and the
planning
reason that
board.
Ms. McCann was talking about it,
Yeah,
was because it's the basis for their hardship. So to the
I
extent that
understand.
the
Yeah.
environmental contamination is something that they have to pay for, then that could be potentially the basis for a hardship.
the
To
hardship.
the extent that they are not on the hook for that,
Okay.
or the work hasn't been done or it hasn't been characterized, then that's information that you should have and would be relevant to your analysis, because they're basing their application for a use variance for that drive-through
I appreciate
on the
that.
basis that they have a hardship.
Yes. Okay.
That was number one. Number two, there is no distinction between a pickup window and a drive-through, and we should call the drive-through a drive-through. That's what it is. There is no such thing as a pickup window. There's no such thing as a pickup window under the Danvers bylaw. And third, there is no doubt that my client has a financial interest in the outcome of this, in the outcome of the variance applications before this board right now. Notwithstanding that, there is not a single thing that we have written with respect to the legalities and whether or not this project meets the requirements that has anything to do with that whatsoever. And so, yes, there may be a financial interest in here for taking these positions, but there is no impact on the analysis whatsoever. And there is not a single thing that is said with respect to the allegations, whether or not the applicant meets the standards that have anything to do with whether or not there's a pecuniary interest to our clients.
Thank you. I appreciate the extensive review that you did, and I'm sure the board does, because it helps us. And notwithstanding that you represent possibly a potential conflict of interest with the other property owner, so.
Thank you.
I'm just going to have I just have one comment or question for Ms. McCann in terms of the other drive-throughs in Danvers. There are two other drive-through pharmacies, CVS, in Danvers, one on Endicott Street and one on Newberry Street. I'm interested in how it is necessary to have a third drive-through pharmacy window in Danvers, and if you could respond to that, and if CVS has disclosed that to you.
Yes, and I'm going to ask Nick to respond to that also, but as we stated in our original presentation, pharmacy uses are very local, and the pharmacy customer is very local. There may be several CVS pharmacies in Danvers, but when I go to my physician and they say which CVS, I specifically pick the CVS that is close to where I am.
Okay.
So they are very, very localized, and that also plays into the traffic generation, which is not particularly this board's purview when we're talking about pharmacies, because the pharmacy is a permitted use here. But that's reviewed by the planning board when we talk about trip generations. While a pharmacy generates different trips than a standard retail, that might be a destination that's pulling people from different locations to come to the area. A pharmacy, the travelers, the people, the customers are typically those who are already in the neighborhood because they are local. But Nick, I'll ask you to respond to that question.
Hi, Nick Fay, Georgetown Capital. So I don't know everything CVS knows, but I know that typically their customer, a percentage of their customers are not having their best day, whether that's due to illness, hip replacement, whatever the case may be, just elderly, whatever the case may be. And so it does make a big difference for them in the ability to serve their customers and serve them more efficiently. And so to the extent their existing location doesn't work, and this has kind of been a known fact with regard to the specific location at 1 Maple, to open a new pharmacy or a replacement pharmacy, it makes sense for them to have that amenity for their clients. But if you have a more specific, I don't know if there's a more specific concern you have with regard to the nature of how they use it, but generally it's because a lot of their people are not doing great, and it helps. It's a convenience.
Okay, I mean, it's more, you represented that they would only go to this site if they got a drive-through at the last meeting. And
Correct.
yet, in our, thoughts about this project and my thoughts about this project, there are already 2 drive-through CVS pharmacies in Danvers. Danvers isn't that big. So why would CVS indicate that they would have to have a drive-through in order to go to this site? It kind of, they would have a new building, they would have a new location, they would be in a redeveloped area. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of positives without having a drive-through. And I'm wondering specifically why you think, or what they've told you, and maybe they haven't told you.
Sure. That's a good question. So, and I only hear what they want me to
Of
hear,
course.
right? I don't have a clean view exactly inside, but I've understood that their business is increased by a double-digit percentage when they have that facility.
Drive-through facility.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and just with the pandemic, it's really highlighted the need for this, so that if you are,
Well, we hope we won't have the pandemic forever. Let's hope.
hey,
I have another one.
I'm
I
right
mean,
there
and
with
the
you.
other thing is, specifically regarding the drive-through, you're saying it's only gonna be for prescriptions. I mean, how are you gonna police that? How, if they call up and say, I need to pick up a prescription and I also need Advil and this and that, and give a list of other items, and Walgreens is doing that, how is it that CVS is gonna say, well, you can drive through and pick up your prescription, but you're gonna have to park your car and come in and get the other items? Is that what they're gonna tell them?
No, so right now, and they have the park, you park your car in the space, they have designated spaces and they bring it to you, and they also have delivery. But the drive-through window is really, it's a pickup. I mean, it's really targeted for the pharmacy, and I think the main reason for that is because those pharmacists are very high paid. They're the highest paid people in the store, and so you don't really want them handling a lot of groceries and things like this. But also the pharmacy space is a very controlled space for security reasons, of course. So to that end, and of course, if that restriction was imposed or proposed, which I believe it has been and we've agreed to, it's just like any other condition that they have to deal with related to trash pickup, operating hours, truck routes, all these different things. These are conditions, I mean, they're a New England-based company, so they're familiar.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question.
Go right ahead.
So,
Do you want to, Nick? Yeah.
Yes, to Nick. So you're gonna have the drive-up window, and you're also gonna have designated pickup spots out front for like store employees to bring out like pickup items? So you're gonna offer both services?
It's possible. We haven't discussed that specifically, but they could potentially do that. I mean, ultimately, they want to serve their customer the best way they can. And again, the pandemic has really informed a lot of the way retailers think about their business. And so if you're talking about, families sick and ill, whatever the case may be, injured people, it's a consideration. Again, that's something we'll probably discuss at planning. I mean, they'll ask us all, they're gonna give us all the questions about parking and so forth.
Okay, thank you. Are we good with the board? Yes? All right. Ms. McCann, I'm gonna go to the audience and do their comments and questions, and then I will come back to you so that you can respond to all of them, all right?
I'll take notes. Thank you.
Also, Madam Chair, we do have somebody online. I think Ms. O'Donnell wanted to speak, but if you want to go to the audience first, that's fine.
I'm going to go to the audience first. These young, nice people are sitting here. Who would like to speak? Anybody want to comment or have questions? Yes. Thank you.
Nova Samade, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1.
And your address, please?
Oh, 27 Fowler Street.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So we just passed this zoning 4 years ago, I think, and this is just not what we had in mind. This is not what we planned on. This was not at all the 40R that we discussed. It was small businesses.
You're talking about what you voted on at town meeting?
Yes, at town meeting, yeah.
Okay, just to be clear.
And it's only been 4 years. I mean, this isn't even like an old zone that, we're changing. So we haven't even had a chance to have it done the way we wanted it done originally. I'm not interested in having CVS determine our zoning. So, like, if there's no drive-through and they don't go there, I'm okay with that. That's fine. I use One Maple. It's fine. Like, if I want a drive-through, I can go to Walgreens, which is right up the street that has a drive-through. I don't need to go to a CVS with a drive-through 2 blocks down. And I understand that there is obviously a business concern for that CVS at One Maple.
Sure, they don't want to lose that tenant.
Of course.
Yeah.
Also, not my concern. I don't care either way. I don't want CVS determining what our downtown looks like when we have already determined what we want it to look like.
Okay.
Thanks.
We appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, thank you.
Hi, Kathy Simon, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 7.
Did you send a letter? Is that?
No,
No, okay.
but
okay.
I'll speak to it, but actually, that's my point, that would be my first point that I'd like to bring up to the board. I would like to see the board do 2 things. I would like to know that the board has done their homework in this case before they come to a vote. I'd like to hear from each of the board members on their assessment of the traffic studies from both Attorney McCann and Attorney Goldstein.
We will have deliberations after all
And
the
I
comments.
would like to hear your comments,
Yes.
each one.
Yes.
Also would like to hear from the people who wrote in. I think that in order for you to make a proper decision, you might want to hear from us. I too spent a lot of time back years ago with the 40R project. I was on board. I went to every meeting. I did the walkthroughs for the town. I went to the Saturday meetings. I asked questions. I read all the materials. I bought into it. I saw that you, actually in zoning, you lost a lot of power. They gave everything to planning.
That's
The
true.
one activity that you have is maintaining the rules. The rule we put in there, and if I could, I'd like to read this part from our own Q&A document that Attorney McCann brought up at the last meeting.
Briefly, yes.
I will. And the question is, how do we know that a new development under 40R will be attractive and will fit the character of the town? Well, their answer to us was, the proposed zoning includes extensive design standards to guide developers and the planning board as projects go from concept to approval. This paragraph from the design standards nicely captures the goal and the vision for the district. New buildings should be designed to reflect the traditional New England village architecture, such as Greek Revival, Georgian, Colonial Revival, and Stick. The design of buildings within the MST&D should capture the varied approach to design while remaining true to the historic New England form. Architecture should be varied but compatible in scale.
I'm gonna ask
That's
you
my
to.
last sentence.
Okay,
Well,
all right, thank you.
I read to the end.
Okay.
And in fact, that brings me to my last point, which is I would hate for us to shortcut information before taking a vote in this case.
Okay.
I think the traffic study is very important to assess as part of this project because I, for one, work in the square and I am there every day. I assess the traffic every day. And I can tell you that that's a very difficult corner to have vehicle traffic and pedestrian traffic combined. If I understand it correctly from your last meeting, traffic is to come in from Maple Street one way and then go out Hobart Street. So my question will be, in these traffic studies that we haven't seen yet or don't know anything about, have they taken into consideration things like left-hand turns out of that parking lot onto Hobart
So
Street?
everything that's submitted to us is available at the planning department. You can go look at the traffic studies that everyone has submitted, so it's all available. And the town hall is open now, so good news.
And so my only hope is that you, before you make your vote, read them, and I'd like to hear
Okay.
what you all think of
And
that.
are you in
Thank you.
favor of this project and the drive-through or not? mean,
I don't have all the information.
You don't know, okay.
Yeah, so I'm not rushing to judgment.
Okay,
My mind is
fair.
open. Again, like I said, I bought into 40R, and I really, I don't believe that this project fits.
okay,
Either its design or if it's in its intent.
thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Duggan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matthew Duggan, Selectman. At your last meeting on August 16th, you discussed the town meeting vote that occurred on December 4th of 2017 for this site, for this 40R district. After I made those comments, the applicant challenged my interpretation, even though I had the warrant article right in front of me. The applicant referred to an FAQ that was presented during workshops months before the actual town meeting. So I was curious about the interpretation of staff. So can, through you, Madam Chair, ask the staff to explain what Section 18 is, and specifically Table 18-8, and also Section 22, which I think is kind of a subsection of 18.
Can you, is there something specific you want them to answer?
Well, I want to know about
Rather than
the
having them
right
to
of
go in.
drive-throughs in this district. There seems to have been a
Okay.
question about my interpretation. So whenever you have questions, I think, rather than go to the applicant for explanations of our bylaws, should go to staff. And if staff is unable,
I will be glad to go to the staff, but our information that's been provided to us is drive-throughs are not allowed.
and that's my point. So,
Okay.
so table 18-8
Unless David would like to say
specifically
something
says
else.
not
No.
permitted.
Okay. Not permitted.
Yes,
Oh.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And so there's a question about Section 18 and Section 22. Can staff just clarify what the differences are between those two sections? Section 18 was approved in December of 2017, and 22 was approved in February of last year. So there seems to be a question in some people's minds about what the differences are between those two sections. They both deal with character-based zoning.
you like me to address that?
Are you comfortable? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in 2020, chapters 18 through 21 were adopted by town meeting. By extension, we moved section 18, which was the MSTNOD, to section 22. So now, sections 18 through 22 of the Danvers zoning bylaw are character-based zoning districts. The intent of the consultant was to fold in the MSTNOD into the character-based zones, which are now from, coincidentally, the Walgreens on High Street all the way up to where Lions Ambulance is and beyond, past this site. So its intent is to act as one cohesive district. However, the difference is the MSTNOD is an overlay over existing zoning, whereas the rest of the parcels was a base zone change from what was there before. So those are not part of the 40R, where anything that falls under the purview of section 22 is in the 40R.
Okay.
All right, thank you
Okay.
for that information. So now, let's move on to the use variance. So we know that Danvers is one of the few communities in eastern Massachusetts that uses use variances, and that's probably be removed at the next special town meeting. So it's not appropriate for this district. We specifically said no drive-throughs, and to the board's point that it's, once you issue that variance, it goes with the property. So if down the road some other plan appeared that had a different retail component, they would be able to utilize that variance. So
Depending on how it was approved here.
yeah, so there's a danger there, like that down the road, you may regret approving it tonight if you were so able to do that. I just think overall the plan itself is not appropriate for a 40R. It's something that you would see out on Route 1 somewhere. So the fact that this is a deal breaker, I think, is a good thing.
Okay.
It just, we shouldn't say that this is better than what's there now. That's kind of a low bar. We should say we want the best of what 40R can give us. And if you look at examples throughout Massachusetts, there are award-winning projects that really hit the nail on the head. And this one, it's all about the money, and it's really kind of offensive to me. That's all
Thank
I
you.
have. Thank you.
Mr. Daly?
Mike Daly, 36 North Shore Avenue, Finance Committee. If it walks like a duck, and it quacks like a duck, it's not a pig, it's a duck. Drive-through is a drive-through. You don't walk to it, you don't take a horse to it, you don't fly to it, you drive to it. Whether you describe it as a pickup window or not. I was behind 4 cars at Walgreens, we got a competitor here, drive-through on High Street. It took me almost 20 minutes to get to the pickup window. And that's got off-street parking and ample accessibility. It's not congesting anything on High Street because they've got plenty of room to go around the back of the building. Sometimes you get there and it's too early to pick up your prescriptions. Sometimes it's, oh, your insurance isn't, something's wrong with your insurance. Sometimes the doctor, gee, he hasn't called in any refills yet. So there's always, many times, gonna be a problem with just going in, picking it up, and going away. There's gonna be backup. Going up Maple Street through the square to face coming traffic from Route 62 going toward the proposed site is a disaster waiting to happen. You're taking a left-hand turn versus somebody coming from Route 62 straight up toward the same car. It's a bad idea. The only way you could get through that is if you made that a one-way street going out of town. Then people could go down there, take the left, without worrying about somebody coming up with a head-on collision. I've been on the Finance Committee for 25 years. I've always tried to vote in the best interest of the town, and this is not in the best interest of the town. I'm opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments and your service to the town. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Mr. Lee?
My name's Jeremy Lee, and I'm the illustrious owner of this beautiful corner at the time. I wasn't planning on speaking this evening. I live at 68 Lindell Street. When you speak to the good of the town, as you all know, our family's owned and operated a business in town, Hot Wat, for over 6 decades. Our interest has always been for the benefit of the town, with no question.
Can you speak to the board, please? And speak into the mic.
I'm sorry.
We can hardly hear you.
This isn't my thing,
It's
sorry.
hard, I know.
But for the benefit of the town has always been our main concern. When this discussion on 40R began, it began with me and Kate Day. We participated together on the overlay that happened on Holton Street. That's been a good example of a small improvement that an overlay can provide of mixed use. She came to me and said, Jeremy, have you heard of this 40R? The main thrust and interest that she had, the senior planner, was the financial benefits of a comprehensive project under a 40R. The reason being is simply defining that zone brought in over $250,000 to this town. With the help of a letter from me provided to the town to submit to the state, I was happy to do it. Didn't hesitate for a second, because that's the way my father brought me up. Always try to do something good for the town. Another aspect of this 40R district is every unit that's built, another I think it's $3,300, I may be off by a little bit, per unit comes into the town. Again, Kate Day's main point. Look at all the money we can bring into the town with a comprehensive project here. Since Hot Water's left, yes, it is not the most beautiful corner. The nature of that building, it is dilapidated. We can't fill it with anybody else because of the condition of that building. It's a great financial burden, somewhat due to real estate taxes. But we worked very hard. I spent 3 years with Brovitz Consulting to develop this overlay. And I've had many conversations with both Aaron Henry, the town manager, regarding the future project in this overlay. A lot of discussion was, the overlay was designed to pass vote with the idea that zoning boards would have flexibility in the future to promote different projects. It's not to put small little overlay projects in there. It's not possible. I can speak to the expense of the environmental costs. I did a lot of I paid for the preliminary site assessment and was it phase 1 or subsurface at great cost to me. I did that ahead of time to give the potential developer a leg up moving forward, to make it attractive to a very good developer. I also spent more time than I wished in front of the Preservation Commission because I wanted to do right by the Preservation Commission. Spent a lot of time in meetings with the Preservation Commission, met their requirements, did that ahead of time to also give a leg up to whomever we had come along. We didn't advertise this project to people. We had a very short list, and we were lucky to find Georgetown Capital, a very capable developer with a great track record, multiple examples of projects that were done very well with great feedback from their communities. We're at a point, I spent 3 years with putting that overlay together, and it's been 18, almost 2 years now, working with these folks. And these folks have done a great job getting feedback from the town, tech reviews, informal planning board reviews. They met with the YMCA, the Rotary Club, affordable housing. They're doing their homework. They're trying to please everybody. made changes to the site plan as a result of tech reviews for fire safety. The nature of the site right now, it's not in good shape. The environmental aspect of it is a huge cost. It has to have a comprehensive project like this to address those costs. Those expenses are project prohibitive. If you don't,
I don't think anyone is against redevelopment of the site.
I
And
agree.
I think you know that, and I need to say it out loud.
Yep.
I think we all want something beautiful and wonderful and new
And
on that corner.
and I appreciate that.
We support that.
I appreciate
The
that.
question is, should there be a drive-through? And
Right.
that's all we're talking about tonight.
I agree.
So we appreciate all your comments with regard to that, but
Well, so the point I'm gonna make is, people are talking about down the road. If we can't go forward with these folks, there might not be a down the road, and we may not have a comprehensive 40R. It might as well, I may have to just sell buildings off individually just to keep going, so.
thank you. We appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, all the way in the back.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening, Tejas Patel, 43 Burley Farm Road, also member
Are
of
you comfortable removing your mask?
Sure,
It's
sure.
really hard for us
Sure.
to hear. Okay.
Tejas Patel, located at 43 Burley Farm Road, also member of the Patel family. We own Corner Grocery at 1 Hobart Street.
Okay. The corner grocery, right?
yes,
You
yes, correct.
represent the corner grocery? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Um,
You spoke at the last meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
This evening, we've heard a number of individuals express their concern regarding the potential increase in traffic if this board grants the variance. I would respectfully request this board to construe any potential increase in traffic not as a sign of an adverse impact to this community, but rather as a sign of growth. Increased traffic means that there is increased economic activity. As a resident of Danvers, I would love to see nothing more than growth in this community. Growth in more businesses, growth in more residents coming to this town. I remember we moved here in 1997. There was approximately 25,000 of a population of Danvers. I don't know what the exact number is today, but it's not that far increase from 25,000.
We've gone up about 1,000 over 10 years.
Right.
Yes.
And to me, as a resident, that's concerning. I'm 31 years old. I'm making life decisions about, do I want to settle in Danvers? Do I want to move out of Danvers?
Could you just direct your comments to the drive-through, please?
Sure. And I think they are relevant to the drive-through because as a resident, I want to stay here and I want to see Danvers grow.
So you
this
want more
drive-through.
people? Yeah.
More people, more businesses,
More
more
traffic.
activity,
Yeah, okay.
more economic growth. The
Okay.
drive-through is relevant to all of that
Okay.
because of the potential increase in the businesses and the 120 units that could also result from the drive-through. So I
Okay.
am in favor of the granting the variance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
The final comment.
Mr. Bradstreet.
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I'll start by saying I'm not in favor of this massive project. One of the things I heard was there's 20,000 cars that was done in a traffic study. No matter what you do, it's gonna get larger. And certainly with a drive-through, it can't take away, but it will add to it. 20,000 cars is an awful lot. If it were approved, what would it take to accommodate these cars in that particular area? Lights, center barriers, whatever. I'm not in favor of it. It's too much.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I see one hand in the back. I see a hand and no person. Hi.
Jane Fuller, 30 Congress Ave, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3. I just have a comment regarding the drive-through. CVS offers free delivery. Why do we need a drive-through?
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Derek Henschel, 3 Hobart Street Court. I am a direct abutter to the whole project.
Yeah.
My back window, my back bedroom window, kitchen, porch is gonna look up at this project when it's done, 65 feet in the air. So I have concerns about that, but the drive-through aspect, it is what it is today. It's a convenience, and I don't think it's a big deal. It's no different than curbside pickup, driving up to a curbside, taking a spot out in the road, and they running your food out to you. It's a convenience, everybody wants it. I don't think it's detrimental to the project, but I have my reservations about the whole scope of the other.
About the
The rest of it,
Okay.
the drive-through portion of it,
Okay,
that's not a concern of mine. And I'm gonna deal with all that traffic, because my street is right there at the end of the whole project, and I have to
Okay.
look at everything every day.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
I've never done this before, so I have to give you my name and where I live?
yes,
Okay,
please.
Margaret Bailey, 8 Sharon's Way in Danvers. So I guess the question I'm wondering, if I can ask, is the situation that...
You have to direct
Sorry,
everything through the board.
I'm curious if the situation is that the proposed developer of the parcel will not get the tenant they want unless the drive-through is
That's what
approved.
they've indicated.
Okay, did not...
That they want CVS, and CVS, this is only what they're telling us.
Okay.
We don't have anything in writing, but they're telling us that CVS will not go to that location
Okay.
without a drive-through.
Thank you.
All right. Are you in favor or not in favor?
I am not in favor.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? So we can move along. Thank you very much. Mrs. McCann.
You had one, Madam Chair, I think you had one online.
Do we have one online? I'm sorry. One
Yes,
more.
if Ms. O'Donnell still wants to speak.
Yes, I do. Thank you. I just wanted to address the comments about the 40R district by Attorney McCann, and also the members of the public who have stood up to support the idea that the town went through an incredibly detailed process to develop the guidelines that are in the zoning for this 40R district. They must have talked about drive-throughs and all kinds of other efforts that you could include in this project. It is hard for me to believe that the installation of a drive-through pickup for a CVS is crucial to the development of this project. I can't imagine that a simple thing like that is something that's so important that the project can't be built without it. And I'm really just very concerned about the fact that there's so much time and effort and community meetings and everything else that went to develop the zoning for this district, and that this board's being asked to ignore that. It seems to avoid the whole effort that this town went through to create this district in 2017.
Thank you.
That's the end of my comment. Thank you.
You're not being asked to ignore the bylaw. You're being asked to look at the entirety of 40R and what this project will bring, and to use your authority under 48 Section 10 to grant a variance, as we have requested to allow the pickup window. So we're not asking you to ignore anything. We are asking you to recognize the 1.5 years worth of work that's gone into the design of this project, the work that has been done with staff and the community as a whole, with the various meetings that we've had. And while it may be hard for Attorney O'Donnell to believe that this pickup window is critical to this project, it is critical to this project. And having a tenant like CVS that has a pickup window, that brings along with it a higher rent. This
Sure.
is a project that has significant cost at the front end before anything can be done, and that's got to be paid for. and it's got to be financed, and we've got to have a tenant that's going to be viable to go in and pay a higher rent, which is paid when you have a drive-through pickup window. It's just all part of the package.
Okay.
And those costs are related to the existing buildings, and they are related to the existing contamination and soil conditions on this site. And that gives you grounds for issuing and granting the variance that we've requested.
Thank you.
I'm
We're going to
done.
move on, if that's all
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other questions from the board? Okay, we're going to go into deliberations. All right, and I'm going to start with John.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a few comments here as to one of the public statements about traffic study. We as a board, look at all the information that's given to us quite extensively. I think with this particular site development, traffic study is very variable here, because although in my comments at the last meeting, I think I was pretty clear that I don't really know what this drive-through would generate for traffic. I can tell you 120 apartments is going to generate quite a bit of traffic, but that's not what's before us. It's just the drive-through. I think one thing that the pandemic's taught a lot of businesses and consumers is kind of how to roll with the punches almost. And many retailers have gone to curbside pickup, which wouldn't really require any relief from this board if CVS was willing, again, to kind of roll with the punches and let go of this. I really can't believe that CVS is going to handcuff this project by demanding something of this nature with the drive-through. I know Attorney McCann said they would be willing to accept the condition of pharmacy use only for this drive-through. Based on a lot of the discussions and enlightenment on the particular sections of this overlay district, or the Maple Street, which I know I'll learn this to roll off the tongue at some point in my life here on the zoning board. I'm really on the fence with this. I really don't know which way I'd like to go, but I really question why CVS is gonna, hamstring this project by this simple and small request that really is the only reason they're before us. The rest of this project is not before us. I want to make that real clear. So I really am undecided at this point, and I'd like to hear the comments from the rest of the board.
Okay, we can come back to you. Jeff?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am not undecided. I'm going to vote no on this. I believe that the planning board and the planning staff and town meeting researched this bylaw extensively, and table 18-8 is extremely clear. Drive-throughs are not allowed. So that's the first reason I'm not going to vote for it. The second reason is I don't believe I've been convinced that there's a hardship. The project hasn't even put a shovel in the ground, and when you go for a variance, it's a very high bar. It says, I cannot possibly do anything else except something that needs relief from the board. And I don't believe that every possible tenant that could go in that space has been explored, and that the only recourse is a variance to allow the drive-through. So I don't believe that that hardship has been proven to me. So I am no for two reasons.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a weird situation. I mean, we never vote on variances or something like that before a project even starts. We're putting the cart before the horse here. In this zoning area, this is not allowed. We've said it numerous times. In addition to that, I think there's many other drive-through options in Danvers. It's not a huge town. I mean, if you can't drive down the street to another CVS drive-through, I think that's an issue. So I am definitely a no.
Thank you. Ken?
I'm a yes. The cleanup is definitely gonna be substantial, and there's someone willing to clean it up. And it took a year and a half for design and all this to come to fruition at this point, and then it's gonna take a long time to clean it up. So at what point do you just say, hey, let's go with the best thing we have right now, and it sounds pretty good. The condition on the pickup window sounds pretty, reasonable with just picking up medication and stuff like that. So I like that as well. But I'm just saying, who's gonna come up next and wanna clean this site up? It could take a long time, like the Monsanto site in Everett. Finally, when casinos came and they were willing to clean it up, and sometimes you have to make a concession to get a cleanup. They had a lot of people didn't want the casino, but they had a casino in there. This is a lot better than a casino. This is just a little pickup window, and then you have all the other benefits of the cleanup. So I am a yes.
Thank you. Corinne?
I am also a no. I agree with Jeff. There is no hardship here. A tenant demand does not create a hardship. I also agree that town meeting specifically excluded drive-through windows in this overlay district. So I don't really think it should be up to us to not comply with what they requested. And finally, I agree with Ken that it's really too early in the project for anybody to be coming to us. I actually watched that entire planning board meeting, and what I came away with is the fact that nothing is really concrete, nothing's really defined, everything's a moving target, everything with the project is still in the preliminary stages, and based on that, I agree with Ken, it's way too early to even be considering a use variance or a variance of any kind. So I am a no.
Thank you. Can I go back to you?
You first. Yeah, I would say I'll agree with my fellow board members, and I will vote no. I don't see why this is needed, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. I also watched the entire planning board meeting, which was extensive. It took a lot of time. I wish we had a memo from the planning board, which we were told we were going to get, but we didn't. So I believe this is a terrific project to try to get our downtown cleaned up and have housing for people and have services for people. But I think that in Danvers, we already have, as far as I know, 2 CVS's with drive-throughs, and we also have a CVS at Target, which has pickup. So I don't believe that that this one is needed, and I think the project should be able to go forward without it. So I'm a no. And you know where you're at.
I do know where I'm at. Thank you very much. I want to thank the board.
We don't have the votes. Let me just say that as chair, that we don't have the votes to move forward. Yes.
I want to thank the board for the time that you've given for this application, and I would like to request leave to withdraw without prejudice, please.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion for the applicant to withdraw.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We spent a lot of time on this. We really did.
You did, and I appreciate that.
We appreciate the comments from everyone in the audience also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can we take 3 minutes?
5 minutes. Okay, we'll take 5. Yep.
This is fast.
Where's DeCat?
Got some poor family back there that's waiting.
Okay, ready? Okay.
You know what I mean? If they can get curbside.
And if they don't, oh well.
Okay, we're back in session, and we're going to move on to our next case. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our next case is 40 Riverside Street, zoned R1. Request for a finding to demolish and reconstruct a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling in accordance with Section 3.11.1 and Section 3.17 of the Danvers Zoning Bylaw, made by Richard and Rachel McIver, docket 21-4949.
Good evening.
Good evening. Tough act to follow, huh?
Right?
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry we kept you so long.
But all right. My
Can you
pleasure.
identify yourself and...
Yeah, my name's Rich McIver. I'm here with my wife, Rachel McIver,
Okay,
and we
all
live
right.
at 40 Riverside.
You cleared the room.
Good. Glad. So
Tell
this
us what you'd like to do, and most of us probably have already been out there to take a look. So
Oh,
we
okay.
usually drive by. And
Excellent. So ideally what we'd like to do is tear down our current existing house. We bought it 2 years ago. It was built in 1950. It's a very small structure, as you may have seen, old. You can't see the foundation, but trust me, the foundation is cement block, several cracks, possibly from the explosion, don't know. It literally leaks water during heavy rains. So it's in pretty bad shape. We were initially planning on doing an extensive remodel when we bought the property. We drew plans up. After that, we decided we're touching everything in the house except for the foundation, which is the worst part. So we decided it's probably best to tear the whole thing down. So as you can see from the drawings, the hash outline is our current existing property. And it is 38 feet long against the northwest side there, I guess, on the map. So that 38 feet is an average of 2 feet away from our neighbor's property. And what we're proposing is tearing that down, and then the red will be the new structure. Now, the up front part where the garage is 29 feet-ish.
Who's got it?
And that will be 4 feet away from our neighbors. So we're looking to improve
Can
the
you-
setback.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, you're not going to be able to point and use
Yeah.
the microphone. Maybe,
You can take the mic.
Okay. I don't want to break anything.
okay.
So,
What, could you like outline
Yep.
where the existing house is and then
Yep.
go back and do where the, yeah.
yep. So the hashed line is the existing house.
Okay,
So this goes to the street level. Then it comes back down out to here. This is just our porch.
okay.
So that is what we're proposing we tear down. In the red is our new property. This front part will be the garage. So right now we're 38 feet long. That's only 2 feet away from our neighbor. So we're proposing cutting that down to 29 feet with the garage. And that will be 4 feet away. So we're trying to improve where we're at. And then this will be 9 feet away. So that would be within the setback, or within the 8-foot setback. And then at the front, we've got 20.8 feet to the street, so we're within our setback there on the front. And then at the side here, we have 9.2, 10.4, so we're well within our 8-foot setback on that side also,
So the only place that you're not within the setback is the garage?
is the garage. And, you know, we took a lot of consideration with the design. We took the setbacks into consideration. We had to go through the Conservation Commission for this whole design, and, you know, that was also a heavy consideration. As we shift buildings around, it increases our footprint within their setbacks, so we had to be careful with that. So that is where we are trying to improve where we're at by doing the setback, so additional 2 feet away from our neighbor to make that a better footprint than it is currently.
And height, can you go on about height?
Height right now, the drawings are gonna be at 28.25.
And what is it now?
I do not know what it is right now. It is lower than that, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've seen many of these projects along
Yep.
the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, many of them.
Yeah,
where,
this one
you know,
survived the explosion,
Some just going
unfortunately.
up and many of them starting all over. So,
Yep.
yeah, it's a beautiful site, so.
Well, we want it to be even better.
Okay, is that all? You ready for
yeah.
questions?
Yeah, please.
All right. Corinne, we'll start with you.
I don't really have any questions, but do you have plans for what the building is gonna look like?
We do.
Do we have them in our
You do
package?
not. I was not asked to bring those. I have hard copies with me.
Can, is there any way you can put them up just so we can see what it's gonna look like?
Yeah, I apologize. We did not include those. If you're able to, you can also, if you have them on your phone, you can forward them to my email if that's easy, or if you just want to pass the hard copies to the members.
We usually get plans.
We'll make sure we have the floor plans in the packet from now on.
And a view of what it, you know.
There are graphics on those hard copies.
I like it. Very
good.
nice.
Thank you.
Very nice. No further questions.
Are you ready, Ken, or do you want me to move?
Oh, I'm ready.
Okay. Questions?
I have no questions.
We're moving along.
We on to me?
Perfect.
Have you talked to Mrs. Lynch next door?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
She got stung by a bee and couldn't be here today.
You're in favor of this project? Okay. And? Sure.
But let's wait for comments.
Okay, that's
Finish
fine.
the questions, and then, can you just wait a minute, and then we'll,
I guess my only question was, did you speak with Mrs. Lynch?
yeah, okay.
She just sent a text to Rachel. But we've all talked, we're all friendly neighbors, and she was definitely for the project.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's great.
That's all the questions I have, thanks.
Jeff?
I have no questions, Madam Chair, thank you.
John?
Will there be a drive-through?
There will not be a drive-through. Guaranteed.
It's a pickup one.
No. All jokes aside, you mentioned a height of 28 feet. Is that to the midpoint of the roof?
So that's using your average elevation from ground level and average pitch. My architect came up with the numbers, but he is familiar with the requirements.
I don't know if that answers my question, though. Is it 28 feet to the?
It's using your average pitch, I believe it is, with average elevation.
David can explain it.
If it's by the book, it should be to the midpoint as you're alluding to.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And I have no further questions, thank you. And you can have this back.
And I don't have any questions. Do you want to just read us the text from, if that's possible, and who it's from?
Sure. This is from Barb Lynch, who
Okay.
is on our left side, where the variance is. She said Kathy, his wife, just informed her that the meeting was today. I would have run down, but I just got stung by a yellow jacket, and it hurts like, I'll leave that word out. If you run into any problems, I will be happy to vouch for you. Good luck.
Okay, great. And would you like to speak, give your name and address, and
My name is Darrell Parker. I live at 42 Riverside Street on the other side. I came before this board 31 years ago with almost the identical project. I tore my house down, built a new house. I've lived there for 68 years, and I've had this house next to me. It's been remodeled 3 or 4 or 5 different times, but kind of always waited for someone to do a real good job or tear it down and do what everyone else is doing on the river. For the height, my house is like 35 feet high. So 28 is,
okay.
you know.
So you're in favor
Yeah.
of this?
And I'm
Support
definitely in
it.
favor of it,
Okay.
and I'd just like to say that I think almost every house on Bates and Riverside Street is actually non-conforming.
Okay,
Just the way they were
Yeah.
built
Yeah,
back
those
then, they were
lots.
built as
Those lots were
camps,
tough.
so.
yeah. Well, there are lots for cottages.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
We're
you.
definitely in favor of it, Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anyone else from the audience? Comments, questions? All right, we'll go back to the board.
I love the house. I don't have any issues with what you've proposed, and I am a yes.
I'll vote for this too. You're doing better on that side setback, and that's a plus. I'll vote for this.
And I would vote for this. I think it looks very good.
And I will vote for this.
Madam Chair, I also will vote in favor of this.
And I will vote in favor of this. We appreciate your work, so, and I'm sure it took a lot of time to get to this point. No idea. So, wait a minute, we have to vote, all right? Who can do a motion down there?
Madam Chair, I can do a two-part finding. I move that the demolition and reconstruction of the non-conforming structure as shown in the plans submitted by the applicant is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I move to grant the finding in accordance with section 3.17 of the Danvers Zoning Bylaws to allow the demolition and reconstruction of the non-conforming dwelling as shown on the plans submitted by the applicant, as it will not be substantially more detrimental than what presently exists.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Second part, move that the demolition and reconstruction of the non-conforming structure as shown on the plans submitted by the applicant isn't this, this is redundant, isn't it?
It's not substantial.
Yeah, is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. I move to grant the finding in accordance with section 3.11.1 of the Danvers zoning bylaw to allow the demolition and reconstruction of the non-conforming dwelling as shown on the plans submitted by the applicant, as it will not be substantially more detrimental than what presently exists.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah, why is it twice? I think that we got
So
two
one-
different sections.
One is for the demo and reconstruction, one's for the
Good luck. Good
expansion
night.
of
You're
the-
all set. Thank you, everyone. Just talk to the planning board. Yeah.
Okay.
We all set?
Yep.
Our final case is 21 Nom Keg Row, zoned R3. Request for a finding in accordance with section 3.11.1 of the Danvers zoning bylaw to construct a 575 square foot addition with 17.3 foot of a side setback where 20 feet is required on a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling. Request is made by William Fallon, docket 21-4951.
Good evening, and you made it to the last
Thanks for
case.
waiting.
I hope. Hopefully this one's a little bit easier than the other ones, but, so as we said, I'm William
Okay,
Fallon.
identify yourself.
I'm William Fallon, and, as we said, it's, pre-existing non-conforming, lot right now. The setbacks are 20 feet on the sides, and we are 19.9 on the back corner and 23 in the front corner.
Okay.
What we're trying to do is put a master bedroom on the first floor for an older couple. And we are asking to be able to go into the setbacks to the 17'3". So we're asking for a 2'9" in the back area of the house, on the back side.
So this master bedroom is for the homeowner?
Correct.
Okay, and
They
so it's
couldn't do
not
it.
an in-law or
Nope.
anything like
No,
that?
no,
It's
no.
just they need a first floor master?
Correct, yep.
Yeah, okay, all right.
That's it.
It'll be an easy project for you right down the street, right?
It is right down the street, yeah.
Anything else you want to tell us about? Thank you for the plans and for the,
Not much. I mean, we meet the setbacks in the back. We just don't meet the setbacks on the side. The reason that we didn't jog it over at all was because there's an existing deck on the back of the house that we couldn't go over any further.
Okay.
We thought about doing that, but we needed this specific size. But, I don't know.
okay,
This is
all right.
R3.
Yeah, yeah. I think most of us have been out there and
Yeah.
it's pretty wooded in the back there, so.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to start with John. Do you have any questions?
No, it seems pretty straightforward, so just to summarize, you're looking to encroach the side setback, and
It's 20
Place
feet
it
in
at
these.
17.3 instead of 20.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
I have no further questions.
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
I have no questions, thanks.
I have no questions.
I have no questions either.
Okay. And I don't have, that's part of my walking route, I don't have any questions. So-
Me too.
All right, so anybody out there, of the two people out there, have any questions or comments? No, you guys are good out there? All right, we're going back to the board.
Madam Chair, it seems like a real modest addition, and it's already non-conforming, and I see this as a very minor infringement, so I would vote yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't see this as more detrimental, so I will vote yes.
okay.
I will vote for this.
I would vote for this as well.
I will vote for this as well.
And I will vote for this as well.
Madam Chair, I move for a two-part finding that the 575 square foot addition and expansion of the non-conforming dwelling, as shown on the plan submitted by the applicant, is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
I move to grant the finding in accordance with section 3.11.1 of the Danvers zoning bylaw to allow the 575 square foot addition and expansion as shown on the plan submitted by the applicant, as it will not be substantially more detrimental than what presently exists.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
Good luck.
That's it.
Thank you
We're
very
all
much.
set. Good luck, thank you. Anything?
Anything else?
Anything else that we,
Motion to adjourn?
We're good.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Good
night,
night,
Danvers.
Danvers.
If you
Good night.
just want to give them